this week's drive, we go to Spa and find out how the Mercedes bends. Get an Alpha high and dry on an English beach. Watch the world champ back on track at Le Mans. And go straight to the scene of the accident. All this and more in this week's Drive. Formula One arrived in Turkey as Fernando Alonso, the Spaniard currently leading the World Championship, was welcomed to Istanbul, outside the city's fabulous Blue Mosque, by the mayor of Istanbul, Kadir Topçu. Alonso has recently been linked with a move to Ferrari, but he dismissed the suggestions.
At the end of 2006 contract with Renault, so I have not too much worry about if Michael will retire or not, or if Ferrari wants me or not. I think I'm in a clear situation at the moment, and I'm quite confident to win with Renault in these 2 years. And then, I have no problems to be Michael's teammate, but we are with very different ages, and will be difficult.
Alonso climbed into last year's car and drove 7 laps around Istanbul's historic Hippodrome, an arena that was home to chariot races during the Byzantine era, and giving residents a taste of things to come as Turkey prepares for its first Grand Prix in August. Alonso said he enjoyed the Renault roadshows, which have visited Madrid, Moscow, Lyon and Rome.
A pleasure for me. I love all the road shows that Renault is doing around the world in the new cities, and to be the first Formula One car in Turkey, in Istanbul, is for Renault and me a pleasure, and we are very enthusiastic about this event.
20,000 spectators gathered in Istanbul's Sultanahmet district to watch Alonso lead a parade of new Renault cars and old racing cars. The country is an important market for Renault, who started manufacturing cars locally in association with a Turkish partner in the late 1960s. At a recent meeting, Renault, with BMW, Daimler Chrysler, Honda and Toyota, established a manufacturers association to represent their interests in Grand Prix racing. The group proposed the use of 2.4-litre V8 engines until the end of 2008 to cut costs and ensure stability for 3 years. Alonso paid tribute to the people that make up Team Renault.
We did a good job in the winter. The team prepared a winning car, and Giancarlo and me, we are doing our job, which is drive the car, no mistakes, finish the races and bring victories to the team, and everything is working perfectly now. The team is very strong and very confident to keep these positions.
Fernando confidently predicted that Renault will be serious contenders at the Turkish Grand Prix.
I think a Renault car will be the winner, because we arrived in Malaysia and the car was good there with hot temperatures and a new track. Bahrain as well is very new and hot temperatures, and here I think the car will be very quick again.
Then it was time for Alonso to head back out on the road to be greeted by flag-waving Renault promotional girls and an army of Turkish F1 fans. Alonso, who's on course to become Formula One's youngest ever world champion, takes recent improvements from McLaren and Ferrari in his stride and expects the pendulum to swing back in Renault's favour soon. Improved cars from Renault's 2 chief rivals at Imola closed the gap at the front, a trend continued at Barcelona. But Alonso is confident of his team's ability to respond and is still feeling the benefit of the 3 consecutive wins which catapulted him to the top of the standings. The German touring car series crossed the border to the Belgian Spa-Francorchamps Grand Prix track for the 3rd round. Mika Häkkinen hadn't won a race since the US Grand Prix in 2001, but started from pole position. However, reigning DTM champion Matthias Ekström grabbed the racing line into the first corner. Another ex-Formula One driver had a tough time in the opening stages, with Heinz-Harald Frenzen's Opel being forced off the track by Martin Tomsik on lap 4. Häkkinen stayed positive and kept pushing though, and his Mercedes team served him beautifully, with the Finn emerging from his pit stop with a slender lead over Ekström. From then on, the Finn knew that this was the perfect chance to end his temporary retirement once and for all. Despite their slick pit work, the Mercedes pit crew was involved in an incident just 2 laps later, with several of them lucky to avoid injury as a refueling gantry was pulled down on top of them. Bizarre incidents continued, with Bruno Spengler losing the front of his Mercedes on one of the straights, again luckily without any serious injuries. Bernd Schneider's Mercedes was wrecked just 2 laps from home after his attempt to pass Laurent Aiello backfired and sent him into the barrier. Mercedes Motorsport manager Norbert Haug watched from the pit wall. The replay shows Schneider tangling with the former series champion Aiello and the car virtually dissolving around the driver as it absorbs the impact of this high-speed crash. After 24 laps, Häkkinen, the 98 and 99 F1 world champion, claimed victory ahead of Ekstrom, his first following a 3-year break from motorsport.
I don't know, I don't find the words nearly, this is tremendous. Has been a tremendous week, tremendous weekend from the whole team. They done, this victory belongs to the team, they done just a fantastic work.
The win lifted Häkkinen into equal second on 17 points, with teammate Gary Paffett leading the way on 19. The third round of the World Touring Car Championship was at Silverstone, the home of British motor racing. Italy's Gabriele Tarquini started from pole position alongside Alfa Romeo teammate James Thompson of Great Britain. But Germany's Dirk Müller in a BMW, the championship leader, started right back in 26th place. Tarquini led and Thompson slipped down to third on lap 2 and then claimed second from Fabrizio Giovanardi. On the penultimate lap, legless Italian Alex Zanardi and Britain's Rob Huff made contact. Zanardi came off worse, into the gravel and out of the race, while Huff continued and finished 13th. BMW driver Andy Priaulx couldn't hold off first Thompson and then Brazil's Augusto Farfus as he slipped down the order. Alfa Romeo had the perfect result as all 4 of the team's drivers finished in the top 4. Tarquini never lost his lead. Thompson and Giovanardi finished second and third, while Farfus started 6th on the grid and crossed the line 4th. SEAT drivers claimed the remaining positions in the points. But the Spanish cars had a poor start from the front row of the reversed grid for race 2, as Priaulx jumped them at the start. The reigning European Touring Car champion looked set for his first win of the year until he was forced out with a puncture with 3 laps left. Britain's Chevrolet driving Rob Huff maintained his 100% stupidity rating by colliding with Antonio Garcia, but this time neither driver could continue. Tarquini, Peter Terting and Thompson tangled on lap 4, putting the Englishman into the gravel, where he stayed. Officials put the blame on Tarquini, who will drop 10 places on the grid for the next round. With Priaulx's untimely departure, Sweden's Rickard Rydell was able to win a thrilling race from teammate Jason Plato, who finished second, giving SEAT only their second win since joining the European Touring Car Championship in 2001. Tarquini ended on the podium again after coming third. Müller, who was 10th in the first race, came 6th in race 2, and the 3 points gained were enough to keep him at the top of the drivers' standings. The next 2 races in the championship will be held in Brno in the Czech Republic. The stock cars raced under lights in Darlington, South Carolina, on a track that's known as Too Tough to Tame. Proceedings may have started in daylight, but this was the first race run almost entirely at night at NASCAR's oldest paved speedway. The field got off to a clean start, but the race would not remain incident-free for long. On only the second lap, the first caution flag of the day was displayed as Kurt Busch lost control and hit the inside wall. Just 5 laps later, another caution as Jeff Green nudged Michael Waltrip, which caused him to hit the outside wall. The crash caused extensive damage to the right side of Waltrip's car. He could do little to avoid the crash, as his in-car camera showed, but he would gain his revenge later in the race. On lap 206, Waltrip edged into the back of Green's car, causing Green to spin, and Kurt Busch in the number 97 car narrowly avoided the collision. Kyle Petty in the pink car lifts off and slows, and Jason Leffler brakes to avoid hitting him, but touches the outside wall instead. There were just 4 laps left when Mark Martin in the number 6 car spun, but he managed to regain control before he hit anything.
A lot of laps on the tires, not enough grip, but look what a job he did to keep it off the fence.
Greg Biffle, who led for 176 of the race's 370 laps, took the checkered flag, his 3rd win of the season, following victories in California and Texas. He beat Jeff Gordon, a 6-time Darlington winner, to the line by 0.98 of a second, or about 6 car lengths. Biffle now lies 3rd in the points race, 148 points behind leader Jimmy Johnson. Next, we go offshore. While the sun shone over the ancient town of Valletta, gale force winds promised rough racing. 13 teams entered the Evolution and Supersport classes at the opening Grand Prix of the year. The Sony boat, making its Evolution class debut, took an early lead, and the Italian team put distance between themselves and the rest of the pack. By the 6th lap, the battle for 2nd and 3rd place was hotting up as Feinplast overtook Thuraya. In the Supersport class, the Brits in Buzzy Bullet took the lead from the Swiss team Offshore Performance, taking a battering in the choppy waters. The Sony team cruised to victory and Evolution honours in their first ever P1 race. Feinplast came in a creditable 2nd, with the 2004 champions Thuraya finishing 3rd. But in the Supersport race, it was the Swiss Offshore Performance who claimed the win after Buzzy Bullet retired with engine problems. The second day saw milder weather and flatter seas. The race began with a massed start, with both classes setting off together, and again the Sony boat took an early lead. Second was Feinplast, determined to keep Sony in sight, but the Austrian Wettpunkt team, who began the race in last place, stormed into 2nd. In the Supersport class, the local Maltese boat Chaudron led, but on the 5th lap, Buzzy Bullet took over. The previous day's victors, Offshore Performance, were in 3rd. The Sony boat crossed the line first, and their domination augurs well for the rest of their season. Coming in 2nd in the Evolution class was Wettpunkt.com with OSG 3rd. Buzzy Bullet held on to win Supersport. 2nd were home team Chaudron after Offshore Performance retired. Despite 2 wins, the Sony driver admitted that both races had been tough.
Today was very hard. The Hans Boeing boat was very strong, and we realised on lap 3 that he'd gone from 4th to 2nd place. So we had to push ourselves to the limit, and were taking some really hard knocks as the sea was very strange. Some places it was smooth, and in other parts we were bouncing around all over the place.
The race signalled a welcome return to form of the Jolly Drive team, who took overall Supersport podium honours. The next race on the Powerboat World Championship calendar takes place in Anzio in Italy. The home of motor racing's historical 24-hour event, the Le Mans circuit in France, hosted the 4th round of the 2005 MotoGP season. Olivier Jacques was under the spotlight as the teams gathered. The Frenchman replaced the injured Alex Hoffman in China and shocked the world with a gritty 2nd place on the supposedly uncompetitive Kawasaki, behind Valentino Rossi. Like Hoffman, Makoto Tamada sat out the Grand Prix of China, but the Japanese Honda rider had recovered from a wrist injury and would be back in the saddle at Le Mans. Shane Byrne of the KR Proton team was another rider that was absent for round 3. A lack of engine parts cost the Briton a chance to impress in Shanghai. While their rivals spent the day in the team garages on the pit lane, several riders took time out to visit the Sarth Automobile Museum. One of many attractions at the historic Le Mans circuit, the museum houses a collection of bikes, cars and memorabilia that are associated with the 24-hour race.
12 cylinders, air and oil.
Meanwhile, defending MotoGP world champion Valentino Rossi addressed a media conference and was generous in praising the Frenchman.
Olivier
was a great surprise for all of us, I think, because after almost a year that he didn't race a bike, he arrived in Shanghai and he made it straight onto the podium. Probably his disappearance from MotoGP was unfair, because a rider who has always been good naturally has good potential. I'm very happy to work for Yamaha because it is a great team and has a wonderful atmosphere. Now I'm only thinking of next year. I hope the contract will be signed soon. Then we will see. I think when you believe you are a perfect rider, that's when the problems start. The best motivation is to constantly try to improve, to become better and faster. Those are the reasons I race. I hope I can still improve.
Rossi, who joined Yamaha from Honda at the start of last year, became the first rider to win back-to-back Premier Class titles for different manufacturers. He may have won 2 of the season's 3 races, but insists that there's still room for improvement.
We have anyway some problem, some difficult to set at 100% the bike. We need to, me and my team, to improve this situation, because we have only 4 hours of practice. But anyway, I think in the future the condition will be better.
Rossi took a comfortable title lead to Le Mans. Once the race started, and chasing his 5th MotoGP world title, Rossi had to overcome a mediocre start. As expected, his main rival, Spaniard Sete Gibernau, and his Honda was constantly in contention. So was Rossi's own teammate, American Colin Edwards, who, despite having led for much of the race, wasn't going to stand in the way, and he let Rossi through, with Gibernau almost glued to his rear wheel. Gibernau has won the last 2 French Grand Prix, and a hat-trick of wins at the Le Mans circuit would certainly kick-start his faltering campaign. Going into the race, he was 5th in the standings, 37 points behind Rossi with 3 of the season's 17 rounds completed. But Rossi was able to seize the lead with just 7 laps to go. The world champion secured his 3rd victory in 4 races by narrowly beating Gibernau. Edwards was 3rd, the first podium of his MotoGP career. On the slowdown lap, Rossi made an effort to bury the animosity between him and Gibernau that arose after the infamous last corner incident at the first race in Spain.
Yes, at the beginning we are lucky because the rain don't arrive and the weather is good, and we are able to do a great race. I think for everybody it was a great show. The bike gave me a good feeling, and this weekend we are very fast also on the dry conditions, so I'm very happy also for the future, for the next races. I'm able to make every lap a little bit better, and the fastest lap on the last lap, and it's possible arrive first. But was a great battle and a great race. I'm very happy.
Media reports suggested that Rossi would quit MotoGP at the end of his current Yamaha contract and switch to Formula 1. But Valentino said he'd be in MotoGP for 10 years. In the 250cc class, Spanish teenager Dani Pedrosa won a closely fought race to regain his championship lead. Pedrosa left it until the 18th lap before snatching the lead for the first time. Frenchman Randy Depunier, his closest rival, managed to claw the lead back, only to be overtaken again on the last lap. Pedrosa, who started from pole position, regained the title lead and now has a 4-point advantage over Italian Andrea Dovizioso, who finished 3rd in France. Thomas Luthi won the 125cc race, becoming the first Swiss rider to win a Grand Prix in 18 years. Luthi led the race from start to finish as the nearest group of Mika Kallio, Sergio Gadea, Mika D'Amelio, Marco Simoncelli and Galbor Tomaxi battled it out for 2nd place. Several riders crashed out and others retired with mechanical problems. Behind Luthi, the front group stayed together for most of the race, with intermittent changes between Kallio and Gadea as they battled back and forth, before Gadea went on to take 2nd place. Kallio completed the podium in 3rd position. Luthi has moved into 2nd place in the championship, 12 points behind leader Mika Kallio. Teutschenthal hosted the Grand Prix of Europe, 5th round of the MX season. There was drama at the first corner of race 1 in the MX1 class on a track made slippery by heavy rain. Defending champion Stefan Everts crashed on the 4th corner and struggled to restart his bike, setting off last. This enabled Frenchman Michael Pichon to take a commanding lead off his pole position. He needed the points to close the gap to Everts in the title chase. Everts fought back up through the field but had to settle for 11th place and just 10 points. Unlucky last year with a big crash in qualifying, Michael Pichon was able to collect his third race win of this season, closing the gap in the title race to 12 points. The Frenchman got the whole shot in both races, and this was the key, as thunderstorms the previous night affected the track. The second race was much closer. Everts managed to get through the opening stages with no problems this time. Pichon and Everts tussled for the lead, with the two men making contact on one occasion. This time, Pichon was able to keep going, while Everts lost ground. Once again, the Frenchman managed to hold on for victory, his fourth of the season, and the first time this year that one rider has won both races at the same meeting, claiming his first double win since the Czech Grand Prix last year. Everts missed the final podium for the first time this year. Josh Coppens and Joel Smets clashed in both heats, but shared the podium with Pichon. Pichon now trails Everts by just 9 points, going into the 6th round of the season in Japan. Defending Indianapolis 500 champion Buddy Rice was injured in a crash during practice for this year's race, knocking him out of qualifying. Rice, who started on pole last year, spent the night in hospital after injuring his back and suffering a concussion. 16 minutes into practice, the second day the veterans could drive, Rice's car spun at the second turn and the back end slammed into the outside wall, scattering debris across the track.
Once again, Tom, this all happened over in turn 2.
Rice remained in the smoking car for several minutes before track workers helped him out and he was able to walk away. Several days after the crash, officials said that Rice would not be cleared to drive and his place was taken by Swede Kenny Brack, who hasn't raced since he was seriously injured in 2003. Rice took Brack's place and won last year's race, and now the favour is being returned. Rice will be the fourth Indy 500 winner since 2000 not to defend his position. Kenny Brack won the race in '99 and Juan Pablo Montoya in 2000, but neither returned to defend his title. Gilles de Ferran won it in 2003 and retired after the season. The driver with the best view of the crash was Kosuke Matsuura of Japan, who was following Rice and spun his car to avoid the incident. His car was towed back with ruined tyres, but Matsuura was not hurt. But just 2 days later, there was another, more serious incident at the same track. This practice crash, involving Paul Dana and Sam Hornish, saw rookie Dana seriously injured with spinal fractures. Dana lost control heading into turn 2 on the 4-kilometre oval and backed hard into the outside wall. Hornish ran over debris from Dana's gearbox, flicked into the air, turned over and skidded along the track on the rollover hoop above the open cockpit of his Team Penske car. The car's safety structure performed as designed, and Hornish was able to scramble from his overturned car and came away with only a cut and a bruise on his right knee. Safety workers then removed Dana from his battered car and he was taken by ambulance to hospital. It was Dana's second crash in 2 days, and his place in the race will be taken by Jimmy Kite. Kite was an IRL driver between 1997 and 2000, notching up 23 starts. He finished 13th at Indy 2 years ago. Dr. Henry Bock, medical director for the Indy 500, confirmed Dana didn't require surgery and was allowed to go home wearing a neck brace. So, whether you're just being a tourist, caught up in traffic, or making it look easy, so you stay on track and up to speed, make sure you catch next week's Drive.